cause any problems. Affection, moderate. Wanted people to like him, they didn't seem to. His father had deserted him when he was really young. Competency, this is interesting. High need for competency, heavily disguised. This kid went through 12 years of public education in the low track. Today, at age 28, 29, the kid probably has a higher IQ than I do. He is extremely bright, he is extremely talented, but he was constantly in the low group. Why? He didn't look right, he didn't talk right, he didn't dress right, he didn't come from the right kind of family, he didn't learn at the right time. There are hundreds of thousands of kids in our system today who are just like this. True or not true? True, okay? So the point I'm making here is to begin to recognize these needs and fulfill them. Now the catch, this is the ugly part of the day. The catch is that I can do nothing to change the kid. I can't make the fat girl thin, and I can't make the kid with learning disabilities into a Rhodes Scholar. I can change nothing about the kid, so I'm going to have to focus on the only behavior that I have any control over whatsoever, and that is whose behavior? My own. See, most teachers come to these things thinking they're going to learn how to change the kid, but the reality is you can't change the kid, so you're going to have to change yourself. So we're going to go to the second question, which I think is hysterical, and if you'll just humor me, I hope you do too. The second question is, what are we looking for when we go in the classroom on a daily basis, and how do we respond if we don't find it? And I'm going to answer the question. We're looking for compliance. True or not true? We're absolutely looking for compliance. Now, increasingly, are we getting the compliance we want, yes or no? No, we aren't. And so what do we do when we don't get it? We're just like the kids. We go in one of two directions, okay? Now, the aggressive people, the enforcers, have been ruling schools for years. I call them the bat people. Now, we don't really beat them anymore, but we beat them over the head with words. Sit down, be quiet, don't do this, don't do this. We tell them what to do, what not to do, and then we tell them what we're going to do to them when they have done what we have told them not to do. It is based heavily on punishment. You guys call it consequences. Punishment is when I, the adult, am the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Okay, now watch. You come in late. I judge your behavior. Bad, bad, bad. And then I pass a sentence. Stay after 30 minutes to make up the 3 you missed. And then I see that the sentence is executed, and then I know that you will never be late again. How is that working? Not really well. So because it isn't working well in today's society, the more passive the beanie people have taken over. Jim Fay and I call you guys the helicopter people. We say we can tell you by the air you stir up as you buzz around the school, rescuing and rewarding everything in sight. Up, you finished your homework, you get 5 M&Ms. Up, you came on time, you get an extra recess. Yakety, yakety, yak. It is based heavily on rewards. How is that working? Not really well. Now see, the reason these two techniques that we've learned from our moms and dads and teachers and principals before us are not working well is because they're based on external control, okay? Now, if I want to raise kids who have an internalized sense of responsibility for their learning or behavior, the question becomes, how can I do it by always controlling them externally? And the answer to that is 10, 20 years ago it was possible, today it's not. So what I'm going to do is describe these two, and then we'll see if it makes sense to you. Let's start with enforcing. I've been in thousands of schools across the country, and almost every school I've ever been in is organized on the enforcing model, okay? So we start with a bunch of rules. Give me some rules you guys have. Call them out nice and loud. Raise your hand before you speak. What's another? Don't get out of your seat. What's another? No running in the hall, no gum, no guns, no hats, no nothing. We used to have a joke in middle school that if you thought you'd have a good time doing it, don't do it here and you'll get along just fine, honey. Okay. So we make a whole bunch of rules. Then we spend a whole bunch of time figuring out what we're going to do to them when they break the rules. What are some typical do-to-thems? The dreaded detention. What's another one? Miss a recess, take away everything, call the parents they gave birth, share the pain. One of my favorites, okay? So we spend a lot of time on this. Now what happens in almost every school is that on the staff you get inconsistency, complaints, and disharmony because you can't get every teacher to do it just right, okay? And the question that the kids ask is, what am I supposed to do and what will happen to me if I don't, okay? When I first became a principal, I wanted to do it right. So I looked around, how do the big boys do it? This is how they did it. So we made a bunch of rules. Then we came up with the consequences, which are really punishment. And we went for warning, warning, pink slip. So you went in your class, if you got in trouble, the teacher warned you twice, then you got a pink slip. Now, if you got a pink slip, you had to come for detention. But the problem was we didn't have enough money to pay a detention teacher. So we had to all, as teachers, sign up for 3 weeks during the year to be the detention teacher, okay? So it's my week. I go down. I got the clipboard. I got the list, okay? I go and I stand in the door. Here come all the kids with their pink slips. I check them off. They sit down. I look at them. They look at me. 30 minutes goes by. They go home. I look down. Darn, 3 kids didn't show up. Now what do I have to do? Track them down. And if they missed 1 day, they owe me 2. And in our school, if they missed 2 days, they owed us 4. We actually had a kid in the 8th grade who owed us over 1,000 days. This is a true story. These 8th grade teachers came to me and they said, aren't you going to retain him? I said, you have got to be kidding. I mean, pass him on to high school. We've done all we can do. Okay, so we did. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about this punishment routine. It could be red card, yellow card, green card. Is that alive and well around here? Gee, where did that come from? You go in the morning. Let's say I'm going to be your principal next week. I come in your building. I run around, and outside of every one of your rooms, I hang a little chart thing, and I put 3 cards in it. Then I start circulating the school like a good teacher circulates the classroom. I come by your room. Things are out of control. I say, ooh, come out here in front of the class and pull a card. So you come out. It's only 10 o'clock. You're on yellow already. All your friends go down to recess. They go by everybody's room. Green card, green. Ooh, look at him. He's got yellow already. He'll have red by the end of the day. Would this bond you to a love of teaching there or drive you from it? Which one? Would drive you from it. I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of you if you're doing it because I never make fun of anything I haven't personally done. But quite frankly, you guys, a rule of thumb goes like this. If the technique I'm using on the kid would not bring about a positive response in me, it probably won't in the kid in front of me. Does this make sense, yes or no? It just doesn't. I don't know where we got into this stuff, okay? Now look, when we use these punishment routines, who is doing all the work? The teacher. If I'm any kind of kid at all, I've mastered detention by 1st grade. What do? A burp, a belch, a fart. I do whatever I can to drive the teacher crazy. I say, not bad way to spend 30 minutes after school, and I'm there with my closest friends, okay? If you have a kid in kindergarten or 1st grade whom you are keeping in on a regular basis for misbehaving or not doing the work, there is a high probability that by high school you will find that kid where? Either dropped out or in some kind of detention. That's right. See, we think we're teaching what? Responsibility. What we're really teaching is only work when somebody threatens you with punishment. High probability, okay? Number 2, do the same kids come day in, day out, year in, year out? What do you think that might tell us? It is not working. It is not changing the behavior of the kids whose behavior we are trying to change, okay? And the 3rd point is, do you always have some teachers on your faculty who do not follow the rules, yes or no? And it makes the rest of us what? Crazy, okay? We had a teacher, he taught math. He believed in gum and candy. We had a rule, no gum and candy. He used to go to Costco or wherever and buy it by the bulk, okay? And he'd bring it to school, and when the kids came in, he'd pass it out. Can you believe? And then he'd say, now just remember, when you leave, be sure and swallow it or chew it up. Now, they were in 7th and 8th grade. They were in a hurry. They forgot about it. Where were the eyes of the receiving teachers when they came in the next classroom? On their mouths. Gum, gotcha, detention. And then the kids would go, it's not fair. And then the fighting would start. He and his friends used to gather down the boiler room, and they'd go, well, if all these teachers would lighten up and hang loose, we wouldn't have all these problems. And then the rest of them would gather, usually in the faculty room, and they'd go, well, We formed a committee. We wrote a grant. We came up with all these rules and consequences. We laminated them, hung them on the wall, typed them up, and sent them home. And how in the world do you expect me to have any control over my class and nobody else in the building follows the rules? You know that is true, even if you're trying not to laugh, okay? At the end of the year, somebody, usually the principal, stands up and goes, well, discipline didn't go well this year. We lack consistency. What do we need for next year? In our infinite wisdom, we answer, we need what? More rules and consequences. I was at this school in Portland for 4 years. By the time I left, we had a plan. 137 steps until you're out. That's a true story. It just grew and grew. We didn't know how to get out of it, you guys. Thank goodness I got transferred so I didn't have to deal with it, okay? Okay. Now, keeping that thought in mind, let's talk about enabling. Because enforcing isn't working, because kids aren't afraid of us, we've gone heavily to this beanie, okay, approach. So we make a bunch of rules. Then we come up with rewards, okay? Give me some that the teachers who didn't come today use. Not you, of course. Stickers, what's another one? Oh, we add up points. What's another? Homework, free time. Anything else? Extra credit, all of this stuff we give them, okay? Now, you already know I'm going to rip this to shreds, don't you? So just be prepared. And if this doesn't fit your philosophy, then don't worry about it. I can give you some resources that kind of support what I'm saying, but I think if you think about it, your common sense will tell you that basically what I'm saying is true. What happens on the staff is you get inconsistency, complaints, and disharmony. The question the kids ask is, what am I supposed to do and what will I get if I do it? And then I, as a kid, come to school, and just like with punishment, I begin to play the odds, okay? Point number 1, you will probably never, ever, ever change the behavior of the kids whose behavior you're trying to change by rewarding the kids who are already doing what you want. It almost always backfires. The good get gooder and the bad get badder. Bad English, but it makes the point, okay? I'm in a middle school one day up in Washington. It's St. Patrick's Day. They're having a big assembly. They got a band. They got a singer. It is really great. I'm walking down the hall with the principal. We go by this classroom. There are a whole bunch of really angry-looking kids sitting in there being stared at by a really angry-looking teacher. Now, who's in this room? Boys or girls? Which one? Boys, you already know. Male, minority, poverty, special ed. So I said to the principal, I said, why are these kids in here? And he said, well, they have to miss the assembly because they either got a D or an F during the last term or they got a referral. I said, well, if they got a D or an F, they were punished. Grades are nothing more than reward and punish. If they got a referral, they got in trouble. Why are you punishing these kids for the second time for the same offense? See, we don't even do that to adults, do we? Well, so, yeah, okay. Here's a man who says, oh, yes, we do. But in general, legally, you're not supposed to do that, okay? So, let me ask some questions. What is the connection between missing the assembly for that reason? What is the connection between what the kids did and missing the assembly for those reasons? What is the connection? Is there a logical one, yes or no? No. Do we really believe that those kids sitting in that assembly for those reasons, missing that assembly for those reasons, are going to come back to that school the next day more dedicated to learning and behaving in that school, yes or no? No. We already know the answer. So then the big question is, why do we do it? And there's an answer to that. What is it? We don't know what else to do. There's an even bigger answer to that. Power control. We really think we're in control. Now, please do not misunderstand me. If I go in the assembly and you start acting up, I walk over to you and I say, can you get yourself together or do you need to leave? I rip my eyes and walk away. And honey, when I turn around, if you are not together, you leave. But you do not miss an assembly held during the school day, paid for by school funds, supervised by school personnel, because you did something in math. There's no connection. It just makes them mad. True or not true? Okay? So when I reward the behavior of the good kids, the good get self-righteous and the bad get worse. It is almost always true. Number 2, phony made-up rewards. Started in elementary school, it is creeping up. We have this charming little program called Student of the Month. Most of you have it, don't you? Okay? Now in our school, you had to have a different student every month. So things went well until about March. And so about March, Secretary calls up and says, I need your student of the month right away. Teacher looks around the room, whoops, ran out. Now, some schools have too many, we ran out, but you had to have one, it was a rule. So frantically, once again, where have you heard this before? Male, minority, poverty, special ed. Here's this poor little kid. He has so many problems. His mother is this, his father is this, he's hyperactive, yakety yak. I'm going to catch him being good for 10 seconds. Move in, make him student of the month. I'll never have problems with him again. So your name is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Paul. So I go, hey, Paul, you're now my student of the month. Yay, class. Paul looks at me, and in his head he goes, one of us is crazy, okay? Either that teacher is crazy or I'm crazy. And in order to prove to himself he is who he believes himself to be, as night follows day, what will that kid do? Act out. We used to say by Friday they'd go home with their student of the month letter in one hand, their suspension letter in the other. It was almost always true. And then we'd go, after all we did for him, we gave him candy and goodies, made him a student of the month. What more can we do? You know you've heard that in the faculty room. Don't try and con me today, okay? And the last one, giving material rewards, okay? Now I'm going to pick on two things. Number one, food. Why, in heaven's name, in a society where more of us are dying of overeating than undereating, where 50% supposedly of all of our kids are overweight and out of shape, why are we sticking something fattening in their mouth every time they do something good? If you want to talk about abuse, you want to talk about long-term health care, this is it. You don't get something fattening every time you do something good. Kids of Vernon used to say, what do we get if we do the work? And we'd say, the joy of learning. And they'd go, ah. And we'd say, oh, think about it. You'll learn to love it. Then after a few years, I'd say, what do you get in this school if you do your work? And they'd go, the joy of learning. Oh, honey, you're catching on. We had a teacher in Oregon, she tried carrot sticks. This is an Oregon thing, okay? So it was in elementary, and she goes, if you do all your work, you get 5 carrot sticks. It did not fly. Trust me, it did not fly, okay? In the schools where I have been, we have gotten rid of all material rewards. Food is for the cafeteria, learning is for the classroom, never the twain shall meet. No, you do not get stickers and goodies. Think how much money you can save, okay? Now, the second thing I'm going to pick on is material or free time. Now, think with me. When I say to the kids, if you hurry up and do all your work, then you can have free time, film time, fun time. What is the message that is going from my face to the kids' face about school work? Get this ugly stuff out of the way, and then you can have fun, 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 and fun, fun, fun has nothing to do with school work. It is insane. We are our own worst enemies. We have Film Friday, Fun Friday, French Fry Friday. Was in a high school, they had Hump Wednesday. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I decided not to ask. True story, okay? You do not need all of this stuff. I'm in Thailand a couple years ago, and I'm sitting talking to some high school girls, and I said to them, I like to ask all these questions. So I said, well, what do you guys get if you do all the work in school? And she looked at me. You know how high school girls are like, oh, this lady's crazy. And they all kind of talked, and then one looked at me and she said, well, she said, if you do all the work, you get to stay in school. I thought, what a novel idea. You work hard, you stay in school, you get a better education, you have a better life. Here, you come to school, you do nothing, you get extra school, and you still have a life. I don't know. I don't get it. Do you? Now, why do I start this way? I spend a lot of time on this to make the following point, and I always do it, and I feel it's important. We are trying to control kids through fear of punishment and allure of reward. Now, I was raised fear of punishment and allure of, well, actually, my parents didn't know allure of reward. We were, I'm older than most of you. It was mostly fear of punishment. But basically, my teachers and your teachers and parents got out of you what they were looking for, and that was compliance. True or not true? Now, compliance gained through fear of punishment and allure of rewards has 2 interesting components. Number 1, it's malicious compliance. If I, as a kid, fear the punishment or want the reward, I'll do it. But I'll always do it slightly off to prove to you that I still have control. You say, leave the room, leave the room. A snail could exit faster. And then you say, I told you to leave. And I go, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. I don't know why you get so mad. You don't think that's funny, some of you, okay? Maybe it just happened yesterday, okay? It's malicious. It is also, you guys, it is temporary. As long as I fear the punishment or want the reward, I'll behave. And when I no longer fear what you can do to me, and when I don't want your little reward, then I, as a kid, am left absolutely with no internalized sense, honey, of taking care of myself. I am empty inside. Now, let's take enforcing. Why isn't fear working today? Okay, I'm going to keep it simple. Thanks to the ACLU and lawyers and special interest groups and state and federal regulations and other things too numerous to mention, can you and I threaten kids on a daily basis with enough fear of punishment to force them to shape up, yes or no? No. In fact, the power base has what? Shifted. Who's running afraid of whom? The teachers and the schools are running afraid of the kids and the parents. If my teachers had said to me, Betsy, if you don't shape up, we're going to call your dad, I would have moved heaven and earth. Now, my dad never beat us, but we never pushed the man, if you know what I mean, okay? I say today, if I'm going to call your dad, if you don't shape up, what do I get back? Try and find him. Which dad? He's going to sue you. He's going to come up and beat you. He's going to yakety yak. Nobody cares. See, you guys, in order for enforcing techniques to work, the kids have to fear you. Since they don't fear you, it doesn't work. You're going to go to detention. I don't care. You'll never amount to anything. I don't need to anyway. Okay, let's take enabling. Now, I taught with M&Ms. I know about this. 2 years, ran a big chapter 1 reading lab. 2 for them, 4 for me. 2 for them, 4 for me. It was a happy 2 years of my life, okay? My husband used to say to me, how much more of our paycheck are you going to spend on those M&Ms? And I used to say, as much as it takes to get me to June, because I was no fool, okay? Now, let me ask you, how many of you have enough money to buy them off? Woman said to me the other day, I added up all the money I spent on treats and goodies and everything, and I was going to give it to my husband to deduct from our taxes. And she said, when I saw how much it was, I decided not to tell him. I'm giving this talk one day, and 3 first-grade teachers came up. Now, not to insult any first-grade teachers, but they had taught forever. Do you know what I mean? They were really good friends. They'd been in this building 20 years or something teaching first grade. So they came up and they said, Betsy, we don't believe in any of this stuff. They said, we teach first grade and we give ice cream and goodies and we have a wonderful time and all of our kids learn to read. And just at that moment, a 5th grade young man came up, and I don't know where the guy got the nerve to say this. He walked up to these 3 ladies and he goes, well, if what you do in the first grade works so well, why are these same kids still totally lacking in self-control in the 5th grade? See, I can get you through the first grade. I can get you through primary. I can, with your little helicopter mothers, get you through middle school. But if I am truly into teaching and parenting, to me, my eye is on what you're going to look like when you walk across the stage at high school graduation and go forth in the world as a citizen. And quite frankly, all this enforcing and enabling are not working well. Does this make sense to you guys, yes or no? Okay. Now, the bad news is that the techniques you and I learned from our moms and dads and teachers and principals aren't real effective. The good news is it forces us into another way of being. Jim calls it discipline with love and logic. I call it empowering, or discipline that builds self-discipline. Now, when I go to empowering, I'm going to change the fundamental question. So instead of all you guys sitting in my class worried about what I'm going to do to you if you're bad or give you if you're good, I want you out here worried about what kind of kid you want to be. In other words, do you plan to get that homework in by Friday? You're going to let it go and take a 0. See, think, sweetheart, think. Now, if I'm going into empowering, there's a little scenario we use. Kid does something I don't want them to do. The first thing I do is in my head, I go, no problem, no problem, no problem. Why do I go, no problem? To remind me, it is not my problem. I don't feel like the S word. I came in happy, I'm going home happy, honey, okay? I am not going to get sucked into your problems, okay? When I get sucked into the emotion, I cannot help the kid. Second thing I do is rearrange my face. Now, most of you have to go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and slap it around a little bit, okay? There's only one look I want on my face when I'm moving toward a person who has done what I don't want them to do. What do you think that look might be? And it is not a smile. Empathy, a look of sadness and concern. See, you, honey, have just fouled up, and now you're going to have to take care of it. So I'm sad and concerned for you. The third thing I want to do, which is novel in most homes and schools, is I'm going to walk toward the kid like I like them. I'm going to try not to rev up and head over so all the kids are going, woo, 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 look who's getting busted, okay? So kid does something I don't want. In my head, I go, no problem. Rearrange my face. Walk toward kid like I like him, not screaming from the overhead. And then when I get right on top of the kid with what we call slanted body, slanted eye, bending ever so slightly at the waist, I'm going to take this problem, which is not mine, hand it back to the kid where it belongs, and see if she can self-correct or take care of it, okay? In this case, the teacher walked up and says, boy, looks like you're really upset. Do you want to take 10 in the bathroom to pull yourself together, or do you think you can wait and talk to me at the end of the period? And then she didn't stand there and say, hurry up, you decide, don't have all day, pick one. Leaving the problem with the kid, she ripped her eyes and walked away, the assumption of compliance. Now, when she turns around, one of two things will have always happened. This is the easiest part because it's always true. It's the hardest part for most people to get. When I turn around, the kid has either complied or the kid has not complied. See, it's real simple. Every time I interact with another human being, that other human being either complies or they don't. As I say, if you've been married a while, why does this come as a surprise to you? You ought to have this figured out. Honey, there is no technique in the whole wide world that will guarantee that you will shape up. Some days you will, and some days you won't. Now, the nice thing about being into love and logic or empowering is whether you shape up or whether you don't really makes no difference to me. You know why? Because I have a belief in myself and a set of skills to handle whatever you're going to do today. I know that whether you comply or you don't comply, either way will be a learning experience. So in my head, I go, whatever you do, sweetheart, it is no problem for me. Now, in this particular case, the teacher walked up and said, looks like you're really upset, called lead with empathy. The girl burst into tears. She said, my dad lost his job 4 months ago, and he couldn't find another one. And this morning, or last night, my mom and dad got in a big fight. My dad threw out his clothes in the car, and he drove away, and he didn't come home all night. And my mother's at home, and she didn't even go to work, and I just feel like shit. Now, for you back people, this is not the time to say, we do not use the S word in this classroom. I mean, if you would do that at this moment, you probably might not want to be in teaching. That would be incredibly tacky, okay? Even I am not that tacky, okay. Now, you beanie people, and you know who you are, this is not the moment to lean in, turn your back on the class, and have a 20-minute counseling session while the rest of the class goes crazy. See, what I need are some techniques to hand the problem to the kid, set a time to deal with it, and keep on teaching. Now, usually I'd ask thoughts or questions, and here's the question I always get. What if the kid doesn't take one of my suggestions? What if she doesn't shape up? Well, in empowering, we see discipline as a process, not a product. Name check, check, drop a marble in the jar. That's a product. A process is working with the kid. So I give my first two choices. Do you think you can go to the bathroom, pull yourself together, or can you wait and talk to me? Now, let's say this kid, for some reason, has gone off today. I don't care what you say. I'm not going to do it. I just feel this way, and I'm going to sit right here. Well, by now I'm back here. Hear the screaming behind me. In my head, I go, what? No problem. Rearrange my face, looking sad and concerned. Don't fail me now. Okay. Turn around. Walk back toward kid like I like him. Okay? See, this is what keeps you happy, happy, happy. Get right back on top of the kid with slanted body, slanted eye, bending ever so slightly at the waist. I'm going to squeeze in your options. I'm going to say, do you think you can wait for me at the back of the room, or do you need to leave the room? Once again, I'm going to what? Rip my eyes and walk away, the assumption of compliance, okay? I walk away. Now, let's say this is a kid who's totally out of control. As I walk away, I hear the screaming. I told you I'm not leaving. Yeah, yeah. Okay, in my head, I go what? Rearrange my face, looking. Turn around, walk back toward kid like I like him. Final set. Do you want to walk out of this room under your power, or do I need to call somebody to come and get you? Rip my eyes, walk away. When I turn around, one of two things has happened. The kid's either headed toward the door, or the kid is not. If the kid's headed for the door, I call down and I say, she's on her way. If the kid hasn't headed toward the door, I call down and say, I need help. If you're in a school where no help comes, you're in big